Hello and welcome to MO2VATE Winners Articles Interviews. I'm with a really interesting guy. His name is Mark Paterson and he is a photographer, but I'll let him tell you more about that himself. So welcome, Mark.
Hi, thanks, Karen. Nice to be here.
You're more than welcome. So Mark, your article is quite a serious topic.
Yeah.
And something that's very, very, well, it's always relevant, but maybe particularly relevant at the moment with the pandemic. We've just found out that the UK is officially in recession. And so a lot of people will be handling mental health and mental changes in mental health in different ways. So to dive straight in, maybe not to that particular aspect at the moment. Can you tell us a bit about yourself, your photography, how you got into it, and the type of photography you like to do?
Well, we all started about 9 years ago. I'd watched a TV program about hairdressing, and where the winner, I think it was British Best Hairdresser, where the actual winners got took out on a photo shoot. And it was those images that kind of inspired me to sort of get into photography. So I also started off by doing landscapes and that nature stuff and just random objects. Gradually progressed onto people, events, weddings, etc. But I suppose my ultimate aim for photography is to have images up, hanging up on the people's walls. My mental health has helped and also hindered.
Mm-hmm.
When I started off, I was in a quite positive frame of mind. But as you see in the article, it was things happened to me that made me get worse and worse and worse. So I think I was really struggling with trying to be positive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think the last sort of 4 or 5 months has been equally as hard, if not harder, because we can't go here, we can't go there. We want to do this, but we can't do it. So there's been a lot of frustration built up as to how I can cope with it.
Yeah.
And thankfully, I have coped somehow. I don't know how, but I have coped.
Well done, because it hasn't been easy. You know, even for people who, I know a lot of us do experience changes in mental health at some point in life. I think it's 1 in 3. I think that's the statistic,
Yeah.
and I think it went up to 1 in 2, like right in the middle of the lockdown. So even for people who have never experienced any mental illness before, or dips in mental health, a lot more people have experienced it than maybe would have had the pandemic not arrived. And so, you know, well done you for coping. It can't have been easy.
I think it's also a case of, because I'm a man, I've not to show anything. I have to be big and strong and brave and powerful, this, that, and the next thing. Where at a time I was not. And I
Yeah.
think that's the sort of hardest part. You can be as powerful, as fit, strong, as confident as whatever you want. Your mental health is important enough
Yeah.
to take seriously.
Yeah. Well, it's the most important, isn't it? I mean, if you health is health, whether it's physical or mental, and if you're not healthy, then you're not able to take in all of the things that you need to, and then you're not able to contribute in the way that you want to and that you deserve to. And so I think you touched on a really important point there, that male mental health has been shunned in the past. I think it's coming to the forefront a bit more in the UK, certainly. I'm not sure about the rest of the world, but I have seen a lot more talk about it, a lot more openness, and people are starting to build a lot more awareness. And I think that's really important for everyone to understand, because if we feel like being a man with mental health issues makes you weak, then how can people turn to men in any situation? Because we need each other, don't we?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing for me personally was the fact that I am, as I say, I am a man. I've been kind of brought up to not cry, to be strong, to be this, to be that, and I felt some sort of failure. because I wasn't able to be as strong as everybody else was, be able to deal with everything that everybody else was dealing with.
Mm.
I think it is important to actually speak up.
Yeah.
I don't know what would have happened to me had I not went that day to the doctors. But it's
And that
something
day,
that's important.
absolutely, so important. And that day is what your article focuses on, right?
Yeah,
And so how did you pull yourself out of that? I mean, you've touched on something else which is also very important, the isolation, the feeling that you're the one that's not coping and everybody else is. And I think a lot of us, when we have different kind of illnesses, but particularly mental health, we feel like we're the only ones, and how is everyone else able to cope, and why am I the one that's not strong, and why am I the one that's not coping? So that feeling of isolation obviously then hinders the recovery process.
yeah. You are the only one going through what you're going through, but nobody else has ever been going through anything like that before. So you don't actually know who to actually turn to, or who to speak to, or what helps on offer. So that's why when I went to the doctor, she had put me on a course of antidepressants, which I'm still on. She referred me to psychology of the local NHS trust.
Yeah.
I've done some mindfulness coaching. I've basically done a lot of things to help me stop thinking negatively, and that's the thing that really gets you. It's
Yes.
how come I'm not as good as so and so? How come I'm not this? How come I'm not that? Rather than focus on what I am.
And comparing ourselves to others is another thing that most of us do until we're taught not to, or unless we're taught not to, or until we're taught not to. But as you said, what about yourself? But I just want to touch on a very, very serious point. That you got to a place where it became very dark for you.
Yeah.
And so you thought, why am I bothering? It would be better if I wasn't here. I mean, that must have been very traumatic, and it's quite heart-wrenching, really. Well, it is heart-wrenching. How did you pull yourself out of that?
To be honest, I really don't know. I was
Okay.
at the stage where I was going through certain things. There was certain work issues. There was health issues. There was family issues, etc. So I really don't know how I was strong enough to sort of cope. Thankfully, I said, look, no, I don't want to be here. But no, yeah, I do. I want to be here. I do want to be here. So, right, I was thinking of negative, like, I'd rather it'd be better if I was not here. I said, well, what would I miss out on? I would miss out on my nieces and nephews.
Yeah,
I'd miss out on photography. Miss out on doing this. Miss out on doing that.
yeah.
So I knew it was time to seek help from the doctors and whoever was in the sort of line to offer me help, and that helped.
And that shows the strength that you did have. That shows immense strength. And the other thing is that people need you as well. They would miss out on you if you weren't here. They wouldn't have your wonderful photography. They wouldn't. The art pieces that you haven't yet created would not ever be created, and that would be a really sad thing for everyone. So I'm really glad that you were able to that you had the strength to go and seek the help, even though you felt like as a man you needed to be strong. And that's another really important message to get out to other men as well, men and women, but particularly to men, and particularly to young men as well, who is in different. So I'm in London, and I work in South London. I teach in FE College. I've said this in every interview now, but the reason I only say it because it is relevant to what we're talking about. And there are lots and lots of young men who are going through the same type of issues. I actually had a student who sadly took his own life a couple of years ago, and that was really difficult for everyone involved. And then we had a real a campaign then to raise the awareness of mental health in young men, which I think touched a few students and did help a few people. But I think it's really important to get more people talking about it, and especially more men who have gone through it and are coming out the other side. So I'm really, really glad that you wrote that article and that you're talking about it. You can helping yourself and helping other people, and also helping other people with your art pieces. So can we find out a bit more about that?
Yeah, like I say, when I first got into photography, it was all about the landscapes and settings and the clouds and scenes, skies, rivers, lakes, etc. So one thing I sort of want to do is to have my artwork on walls, rather than have a blank space on a wall. Have one of my nice pictures. I
Yeah,
just done one on Tuesday night there. There was a sunset over a loch, sort of gold orangey colour, and it was beautiful.
that
I can see
sounds
that.
beautiful.
I can see it being one of the a good seller in years to come. But it's also about capturing things that you don't normally see in your day-to-day life. You're coming from home to work, work to home, work to shop, shops to home. You're too busy doing things. You don't take time to just stop and look at what's around you. Even sort of birds. I've seen me walking through forests and stopping, not because there's anything nice to take, just to actually listen to the birds singing. And that's a good grounding. The fact that you're busy doing this, you've got kids to look after, bills to pay, this to be done, that to be done, next thing to be done, but to actually be there and do nothing and listen to somebody else just getting on with their life, i.e. the birds singing or the bees flying or bees buzzing or whatever, it's a nice thing.
That's beautiful, and it comes back to mindfulness, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Because as
Um,
go on.
I think being present in sort of nature has helped me mentally as well. Obviously, the fresh air, the exercise, and carrying around my camera bag and tripod to see what I can get and what I can't get. It can be quite daunting at times. But I think being out there, knowing, right, I may capture this, I may capture that, I want to capture this, I want to capture that. Having some sort of goal to go for is a good thing.
It's all about growth, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you get your photography out there for people to see?
Well, at this moment in time, I've just got our Facebook page called
Excellent.
Paterson Photographic Services. I've got an
Paterson Photographic
Photographic Services,
Services. That's with one T.
one T, good guess. I've also got our LinkedIn page, which I'm growing.
Good,
I've
good.
also got an Instagram that I'm growing. Maybe don't share as often as what I probably should, but it's just finding the things to grow and put on it that's going to be of interest to people.
Yeah, content. Something's going to interest somebody.
Yeah.
Okay, so could you give us the your Instagram handles, your LinkedIn name? We've got your Facebook.
Yeah.
Um,
My,
so- yeah,
my Instagram is at Paterson Photographic Services.
at Paterson Photographic
Yeah.
Services. Again, one T.
One T, and my LinkedIn is Mark Paterson.
Mark Paterson, and of course, all of the links will be in the descriptions. So, Mark, could you give? I'm going to be cheeky, and I'm going to ask for 2 tips.
No,
Could you?
can only have one.
I can only have one. Okay,
Yeah,
how can I integrate it into? So, the first tip I'm going to ask you is if there's anyone out there who is feeling low and is feeling like there's nowhere to turn, could you give them a tip or some advice as to how they can start to pull themselves out of it and remember how important they are to us?
I think the easiest one for me would be to go and speak to someone. When I was working, if I spoke to a doctor, I think a doctor or medical professional is probably the best person to speak to because they've been trained to identify this and identify that. So I'd go and speak to either a doctor or go to casualty and stay someone there. And if it's really, really that bad, which I've visited twice, saying that it has been that bad. So doctors are there to help. They will point you in the right direction as to where to go. You may not know where to go. Your friends, colleagues, your mates might say, "Oh, grow up, get a life, cheer up, it can't be that bad,"
Yeah,
which is great for them to say. But well, it is for me because it's this, because of that, because of the next thing. So speak to some medical professional, doctor, nurse, whatever.
Yes, and of course,
Somebody that can help you and put you on the right path.
And of course, for the people who maybe are not ready quite for that, or maybe it's the middle of the night and they're not able to speak to a doctor, there are charities as well that you can turn to in the heat of the moment. The second tip.
I thought I'd go off with that.
You got away with that, didn't you? So the second tip for anyone who wants to get into photography, what advice could you give them?
There's really no advice that I can give to actually make someone start. If you want to go for it, go for it. There will be some aspects of photography, nature is quite easy, it's quite frustrating, but you may also want to work with people, do portraiture. So whatever you want to do, just go for it.
Excellent. And I'm guessing if you don't have a camera, you can use your phone these days, right?
Yeah, the phone cameras are almost, I would say, almost as good as digital cameras.
Okay.
They have some limitations, but yes, even taking cameras on your smartphone, it certainly helps to get your eye in to see what looks good, what doesn't look good, and just getting out and just capturing, just take pictures, just capture,
just do it.
Just do it. You might find some that are actually nice that you maybe haven't thought about. Because I took one, was it 2 weeks ago? I was down at our local beach, and there was this sort of wooden stake thing. At first, I took it just for the sake of taking it, but I didn't quite like it. But when I did work it and I did put a board around it, it was beautiful. So it does actually work. So just take whatever, snap happy, as many as you can, and see what you like. And
there's always a surprise in there, as you've just illustrated.
If you're going out to take a certain thing, like landscapes, you might struggle with a certain portrait, etc. But you'll go along, there will be something that just says, wow. One thing that was worth it.
And I'm going to end there because that was a beautiful nugget. Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you for joining me. And if you would like to read Mark's article, then head over to MO2VATE Mag, and that's MO2VATE mag.com, MO2VATEmag.com, where you can read Mark's article. And if you've liked this interview, then make sure that you give us the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell so that you always get the notifications and never miss an interview. My name's Carrie Griffiths. I'll see you very soon. Take care. And of course, stay hydrated.
Bye.